Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Tackling Basketball Podcast. My name is Evan.
I'm Jonathan.
No, wait, that's not right. Evan's not here today. We're taking over. My name is Jonathan.
I'm Micah.
And we've got quite the show planned for you today. And we know that because we already recorded it, except the recording failed.
So we're on round 2.
But we're actually putting an effort this time, which we have been for this entire season. So this really doesn't make a difference other than it makes us sadder.
Yeah.
Anyways, we've got a lot of topics to discuss today. A lot with the NFL, as well as finally a couple of NBA moments to chat about. Media day is fast approaching, and there are 2 players still stuck on the trade block. So ahead of that, though, let's go ahead and kick off the episode with our usual toast and roast. Micah, who are you toasting to this week?
I'm toasting the running backs for the Miami Dolphins this week, Raheem Mostert and Devin Achane, after a game last week where each of them scored 4 touchdowns.
Yeah.
Against, by no means a good defense, but
Shut up, man.
but still getting 4 touchdowns each, and especially for Achane being a rookie, was so much fun to watch and so much fun to see. Especially as someone who was really hurt when Dalvin Cook didn't come to the Dolphins.
Yep.
After he got released by the Vikings and said that the Dolphins were one of his top choices. I was really, really hoping he was coming here. I thought that was like what we needed to put us over the top. But after watching last game, doesn't really feel like we need him.
Yeah,
we got some
so.
good running backs. Ahmed is injured too and didn't even play. So they played so well. Saw a thing on Twitter that the 6 fastest plays so far in this NFL season were all done by Dolphins players. It's Tyreek Hill a few times, and then Mostert and Achane all getting over 21 miles per hour on those plays.
I mean, obviously Tyreek's in there, always one of the fastest in the league, but that is how they destroyed this defense, is with speed last game. And it was a bit embarrassing for Broncos fans. But yeah, definitely a well-deserved toast.
Yeah.
For my toast of the week, I have C.J. Stroud. Another rookie, back-to-back weeks, boasting a rookie as my toast. But I mean, man, what a game for the kid. Getting his first win versus the Jaguars, a team that a lot of people had pegged as like a top-end talent in the league. But he was able to get it done against them. Also, some stats for him now. This is not just amongst rookies. This is just league totals. He is now 5th in passing yards. He has 4 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. And the weirdest one to me, he's top 10 in yards per attempt. Which the reason that's crazy is because it's already a rare stat for like quarterbacks in their rookie season to be that high in yards per attempt. But he's doing this on a team that like has very little wide receiver depth and has absolutely no running game. So to be able to overcome that and still be very productive in the passing game is just huge and very toastable. So cheers, CJ.
Yeah, cheers, CJ. Moving on to the roast. I am roasting the Tennessee Titans. This is more of a roast against the O-line, although the entire team is not great. But after last week losing 27-3 and only gaining 94 yards the entire game, which is the fewest yards that they've gained since moving to Tennessee in 1997. It's just so abysmally bad.
At least the Houston Oilers were worse.
But like I said, their O-line is atrocious. They're giving up 4.3 sacks per game. They're not allowing Tannehill any time to actually make a play or do anything.
Yeah.
The Titans are just looking absolutely horrible, and it's not really looking like they're going to be getting that much better.
Yeah, it's brutal. I mean, I already didn't believe a lot in them. We all had them sort of as middling teams in the league, and they are fighting hard to be amongst the worst in the league, I think. Just anemic offense, not a lot of like defensive prowess to boot either, and like you said, just an embarrassing loss to the Browns. So yeah, easy roast. And to follow it up with an even easier roast, I've got Vance Joseph. And my God, how do you allow 70 points in a single game? It is atrocious. And like, I knew that the defense was going to regress this year for a couple of reasons. First of all, they've been like drafting primarily on the offensive side, not really addressing defense, and it was just bound that we would regress a little bit as far as player talent is concerned. But the bigger reason, the one that I'm addressing here today, is they swapped Ejiro Evero at DC for Vance Joseph, and the results have been appalling. Over the last 2 weeks, the Broncos have allowed a combined 105 points versus 2 teams in a total of 2 weeks. Those same 2 teams in their other 4 games, twice the amount of time, has scored a combined 83. So, like, it's not just that the Dolphins and the Commanders have potent offenses, which at least the Dolphins do. I'm not convinced by the Commanders yet. It's that this defense has been that bad. Spoilers, this is part of the reason why I didn't promote the Dolphins to number 1 in my power rankings this week. It was not... it was a very impressive performance by them, but the defense, I think it was a lot more telling about the Broncos defense than it was about the Dolphins offense. And like, we were also missing our top 3 safeties, depleted cornerback depth. We've lacked linebackers for years. But even still, like, a lot of the things that went wrong this game, you point to coaching. Missed tackles, low effort. It's just, you can't escape this if you're Vance Joseph, and you need to find an answer.
Yeah. I will say, scoring 70 points was great and all. Man, kicking that field goal and setting the record would have been pretty nice. Like, respect to Mike McDaniel for showing some mercy and saying we don't need to do this. It doesn't matter. But
I mean, that almost made it hurt worse. It was because you could tell that he was almost trying to show mercy the entire fourth quarter. They were running it up the goddamn throat. And they were breaking out from massive gains, and they had so many rushing touchdowns late in the game. Not because they were trying to showboat, but because if you get a giant hole, why wouldn't you take it? And if you can take it to the house, score 70 points and just embarrass your opposition. So,
yeah.
It was terrible. But yeah, props to McDaniels, honorable toast this week, who just did his best not to showboat, kneeled the ball instead of setting the NFL record for most points in a single game. So, class act, but brutal.
Also do want to give a quick shout-out toast to Breanna Stewart. Just won a WNBA MVP today. Been playing incredible all season. Just won tonight, the second game against the Sun. So, cheers.
Cheers. So this week was a weird week in the NFL. Quite a few upsets and what was nearly the highest scoring game of all time. Obviously, some teams impressed us and others really fell flat. And this is the section where we get to talk about them. It's time for the NFL Power Rankings. Evan, though he's not here to vocalize his opinions, did provide his updated power rankings for this week. And so we will start off this section by absolutely roasting his takes. Micah, rip him apart.
All right. One of the things that was most glaring to me, I feel like he has the 49ers a little bit too high. He has them at number 2. And he has the Seahawks really high at number 7, which I don't think they're quite there yet. 49ers for me, I feel like even though, yes, they are 3-0, I don't think they're better than the Eagles.
Agreed.
I still would probably say that the Eagles are probably the best team right now, but I mean, I held my Dolphins bias to number 2 for too long. You can't score 70 points and then for me not to.
for your favorite team in the league to dominate that way and not make the top. Yeah.
Yeah, I had to put them at 1. But I think the Eagles are a more complete team. I think they've got a harder schedule than the Niners. Yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, you can see my top 3 hasn't really moved at all. Eagles, I think, have had a little bit harder schedule, a little bit more impressive wins other than week 3. Obviously, the Dolphins had that massive blowout, but their other 2 games were single possession games. And so the Eagles, stronger opponents, stronger margin of victory, earned my top spot. Dolphins were number 2 for me last week. It's hard to lose any ground with a performance like that. It's almost hard not to gain ground, but against that defense, and it's just not enough to impress me enough for 1 yet. And then the Chiefs, I mean, Kadarius Toney is no longer an asset for them, which means that they are now a top team in the league. Moving down towards the bottom of this, you'll see the Bears fell a lot, now in an 0-3 hole. The Broncos fell a lot as well, which I don't want to talk about them anymore. So we'll move on to the other fallers that I've got here. You got the Ravens, who lost to a depleted Colts team, not even like forwarding their starting quarterback in Anthony Richardson. The Jets are big fallers who, I have the Patriots ranked pretty highly, higher than most, but it's still an embarrassing loss for them. Vikings, the 0-3 hole is really deep. I think that those teams are the teams that they lost to are fairly strong. It's a tough start to their schedule, but it's still a huge hole to crawl out of. Titans, big fallers. You can't lose 27-3, even though the Browns are a great team. Not enough to keep them from falling pretty far in my rankings. And then, you've got Seahawks starting to rise for me, not quite as high as Evan. I think that they're mostly the product here of a lot of fallers in the middle of this. A lot of teams unexpectedly lost in the middle of my rankings, and sort of their fall pushed the Seahawks higher than I intended, but still probably deserved. Packers with an incredible win over the Saints. I did not see that one coming. In fact, I bet against it in 2 of my bets last week, I think, which did not pan out. And then lastly, obviously the Texans. I toasted to CJ Stroud earlier, and I can't do it enough because that was a really impressive destruction of the Jaguars.
Yeah, that was a great win. And bouncing off of the Jaguars, I've got the Jaguars, the Bengals, and the Chargers all bunched together. Maybe too high at 13 through 15.
Maybe.
There are a bunch of teams that just haven't been playing well. I mean, Bengals won last night, and I still dropped them in my rankings.
Yep.
Because it was such a bad win.
It was terrible.
It was horrific. And the Jaguars are not playing well. They just had a terrible game. Chargers finally won one, but against a team that's, like we talked about, 0-3. All of them, though, I still want to have up there because, in theory, these should be great teams. Yeah. They were great last year.
They're better than their record, but I don't know. Maybe we're being too generous right now. I don't know.
I think I probably am, but I do want to. One of my biggest risers, besides the Packers, was the Browns going up 5 spots. Mm-hmm. And that is purely a result of me way over dramatizing Nick Chubb's injury. After that loss, I was like, oh, the Browns are done. And then last game, I was like, no, never mind.
Yep. I mean,
they're still a good team.
Going back to Evans here, he has the Browns, I think, still too low, which is almost criminal considering that he moved them up 7 spots in his power rankings. I understand Nick Chubb going down was scary, but this team is still got a lot of skill and talent. And like you look at this last game, and we almost had a toast of Deshaun Watson, who, like, in order to evade a sack, threw the ball backwards 20 yards, almost giving up like a scoop and score. Luckily, his lineman was for some reason that far deep in the backfield and was able to recover it. And they still destroyed their opposition 27-3. Like, this is a really good team.
Yeah.
I don't know how a lot of people still are sleeping on them. I don't know how Evan ever had them at like 17. But
yeah. I would also like to point out, this was also the case last week, but in our combined power rankings and my personal rankings, my top 6 are exactly matching, and my bottom
5.
Oh yeah, bottom 5 are also exactly matching. So
I think
that means I'm the best at this. I don't know.
I think it means you delete all your selections, and then once the algorithm works out what the average is, you just copy and paste.
Hey, I was the first to do this one.
That's true.
I had it written down before it was even up. All right, but moving on from the power rankings, we're now going to discuss our matchup of the week that we're most excited for in this upcoming NFL week. And I think I probably have the most obvious one.
I think so.
Yeah, it's the Dolphins at the Bills. These are two really, really good teams in the same division fighting for that 1 seed in the division.
Really fun teams, too.
Oh, yeah. And especially after the Aaron Rodgers injury and the Patriots being a pretty mediocre team, like there's no one else really fighting for this right now. So
yeah.
Two really fun teams that are going to be going at it. This is obviously going to be the Dolphins' biggest challenge so far. But seeing how they played against the Patriots and the Patriots' defensive scheme and how we combated that, I feel like we should be good enough to combat what the Bills are going to do. It's going to help that it looks like Von Miller's still going to be out in week 4. And I think those will be the biggest test for our defense as well. Obviously, when you have probably most likely the greatest offense in the league right now, all you're really hoping for is a defense that's good enough.
Yeah.
And I do think we have that. Jalen Ramsey's still out, going to be out for a while, so it'll be a lot better once we have him back. But I think our defense has shown a lot of great promise in the last 2 weeks. So I'm very excited for this game. I think this will be really telling and will have major implications for how this division looks. If the Dolphins win this, go up 2 games against the Bills.
That's huge.
And if the Bills win
and take control of tiebreaker as well.
Take control of tiebreaker. This one is at Buffalo, so we'll have our home game as well. This will be huge. And then Bills will take the number 1 seed on tiebreaker. But big game. I mean, early in the season, but still has big implications for what the rest of the season looks like.
Yeah, I mean, looking back, this could be the game that decides the division.
Yeah.
I do give the Bills the edge here, I believe. Just a really solid team all around, and I think really hungry, have their number out for the Dolphins. So, but we'll have to see what happens. For my matchup of the week, though, I've got the Packers versus the Lions. This is a sort of a weird mashup, sort of a little niche one. I had both teams ranked pretty low at the start of the season, to be honest. But they've both, to a degree, proven me wrong. They're 2-1 now. They've each had one impressive victory, with the Packers beating the Saints this last week, and the Lions defeating the Chiefs, obviously, in week 1. They've each had a fairly tough loss. The Packers losing to the Falcons in week 1, and the Lions to the Seahawks in week 2. And so far, I've been more impressed by the Lions season. I think that they're all around the better team. I think that they had the more impressive win, the less obnoxious loss. But what makes this really interesting and pushes it over the edge for me is that Christian Watson and Aaron Jones are likely returning from injury. And those are two huge additions for this Packers offense. And I think that it will just make this a really entertaining game with two really strong offenses facing off against each other. And it also has huge playoff implications as well. The other two teams in this division are both 0-3 right now, meaning whoever wins this game takes control of the tiebreaker for now. And the record and it has a massive advantage in the standings. So get ready for an absolute nail biter, a shootout, whatever you want to call it. It'll be a good game.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this game. Both of these teams feel like teams that could easily make the playoffs, probably not make deep runs, but are in that pack that's very promising, could do something really special, but not a top 5 team, but still way better than some of those middling teams. So I think this will be a really good fight.
Yeah. And if I can, I'd like to bring up an honorable mention for Game of the Week. That is Vance Joseph versus a puppy with a football plushie. I have high hopes for the puppy. I think that he'll be serious problems for this defense, and we're going to see just an absolute shootout here. So can't wait. With Media Day fast approaching, it's now time that we address the two biggest names that are still stuck on the trade block, James Harden and Damian Lillard. Micah, we'll go ahead and start with you. What are your thoughts on the James Harden situation?
Yeah, the James Harden situation is an interesting one, especially with the new rule that me and Jonathan found today.
It's a weird rule.
Deep in the new CBA, and just one paragraph essentially saying, I mean, we can read the whole thing, but essentially saying if Harden doesn't report for the Philadelphia 76ers within 30 days of the season starting, season officially starting on October 3rd, the Philadelphia 76ers can just block Harden from signing to any other team and can offer Harden the vet minimum, and he can't do anything about it.
He can refuse to play for them next year, but then he's playing for nobody unless the 76ers waive their rights to force him to be on their team. So I won't read the exact clause because it's a little long-winded and complex, but yeah, the long and short of it is if Harden holds out past November 2nd, then the 76ers are the only team that can sign him in free agency the following season unless they willingly give up that right, which means that Harden will forfeit his bird rights, which is the exact reason he's searching for this trade instead of just hitting free agency next year. And he also either won't play in 25 as well, or it'll be for pennies on the dollar, because the 76ers will hold all of the cards. Now, granted, this is the only if he doesn't report to camp, which is a huge incentive for him to actually show up. He's threatened not reporting, but knowing this, which everyone certainly told him by now, those threats are likely empty. So what do you think of the trade landscape for Harden?
I don't think there's a lot out there, and I don't think one is going to happen before training camp. I think he's going to have to show up, especially because I feel like any team looking to trade for him is going to be more interested in Lillard. I know at least Miami has said it's kind of a consolation prize if they don't get Dame, which means I doubt we're going to see Harden moved until we see Dame moved.
That makes sense.
And then even after Dame is moved, we have Harden that doesn't just have a bad history of flaming out in the playoffs every single year. Now he's flaming out in the playoffs every year and just constantly being disgruntled, showing up to training camp out of shape, complaining, asking out of situations. I can't imagine he's going to go somewhere and be happy and be all in and say, this is the perfect scenario. Now I'm good to go. Even if he got traded to the Clippers, which was his ideal situation, and the Clippers don't really have enough to get him, I don't think. I feel like he would find a reason to be upset there too.
Yeah, and it's not hard to imagine that a GM will think the same thing, that they won't want him to join their team because he's been disgruntled with every team, seeking the perfect situation, which he probably is in right now.
Yeah.
It's the only reason I think that he's looking to get out is because he wanted more money, which is not a good enough reason for any team to pursue him. And like you said, the Clippers were like the number one option. They have a first round pick in 28 and 30 that are available for trade, as well as 2 swaps that they can give up. And then players outside of the obvious, like Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, which are not going to be moved for Harden. On 2024-5 contracts, you have Bones Highland, Norman Powell. Like, it's not guys that are going to inspire this trade or that are going to make the 76ers want to do it. So, like, in my opinion, 2 firsts, 2 swaps is more than enough for Harden at this point in his career. But I bet the 76ers will disagree, and I bet that we don't see him moved, like you said, until at least Dame has gone.
Yeah. It's also interesting, too, because at least in the Dame scenario, Portland is rebuilding. We want young stars. We want draft capital. I don't think Philly wants that. When you have an MVP level Embiid, like, you're trying to win now. And that was the hope when you got Harden, was to win a championship. If you're trading Harden, you need a star. And I don't see any team looking to swap Harden for anyone who's going to put Philly over the edge either.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, because Harden also probably needs to go to a contending team, which means you're probably seeking a third team to make this deal happen. And I really don't have a lot of idea what that looks like right now. Maybe it gets slid into the Damian Lillard trade. That would be fun.
It could. It would make for a very exciting couple days of everyone breaking that down and what it means.
Right. Might have to do an emergency pod for something.
Yeah, seriously. But moving on to the Dame landscape.
Yeah. ESPN reports the Raptors are now frontrunners. Sports Illustrated disagrees, reports the Celtics as frontrunners. And Bleacher Report says that the Blazers have completely ceased discussion with the Heat and that the deal will not happen there. Micah, what are your thoughts on that news?
I was really surprised to see the Raptors' name up there. Mostly because, I mean, we've seen the Raptors do this pretty recently when they signed Kawhi Leonard.
Yeah.
And yeah, hit a home run. They won a championship. It worked perfectly. I will say the Raptors, I felt like were in a different scenario. They seemed like a really good team that was making the playoffs every year. Was winning playoff series until they ran into LeBron and then lost every single year. Which was the whole point of that trade, was to beat LeBron, even though he had already left.
Yeah.
But I just don't think this team is good enough, even if you add Dame, for it to be a championship team. Yeah, it's a little different. Kawhi was a guaranteed 1-year flight risk. And Dame, you have on contract for 3 or 4 years, even though he probably maybe won't be happy. But I mean, if you're having to give up some of your young players, I feel like Portland is going to really want OG Anunoby or Scotty Barnes if they're not willing to give up enough picks and Grady Dick and everything. But even if they're able to keep OG and Scotty, it's like Pascal, OG, Dame, and Scotty, it's like maybe that's enough to win a championship, but it doesn't feel as clear as what it was with Kawhi Leonard.
So here's the kicker, though. In my mind, they have 3 first-round picks available for trade, as well as 3 swaps. They have Grady Dick, who the Blazers said is a must-include, and that altogether might be enough to get it done. So you could potentially hang on to Pascal Siakam, Scotty Barnes, OG Anunoby, and then on top of that, not counting Dame's contract, the Raptors are only set to have $85 million on the payroll next season. So if they could convince another star to join them in free agency, then we might see a team that is at least able to carry themselves through the East, because it is the weaker conference right now. But beyond that, it's a team that could potentially give troubles to Western teams in an NBA Finals. So I think that the Blazers fans should be excited about this prospect, because either you're getting a shit ton of picks or you're getting a young stud, as well as a lot of picks.
Yeah.
And then as Raptors fans, it feels unnecessary because, like, as we're discussing this, they have a lot of young talent on this team and a lot of draft capital. It's something that they could totally build this organically, but fast forwarding it a little bit with Dame seems like it could also find success in my mind.
Yeah, this would be a trade that, as a Blazers fan, it sounds fantastic. I would be 100% on board with this. I'm more surprised from the Raptors' point of view, and as someone who still, even though these last couple months have been rough, still love Damian Lillard, I would rather see him go to a team that he really wants to go to and would be happy at. But I mean, I think my Blazers fandom runs deeper, so if we were able to get this Raptors trade, yeah, that'd be real nice.
That for sure
I
would.
would take that.
The other team involved here that is getting a lot of reports, because there's a lot of teams like interested, but the other big name is the Celtics right now. They have 4 first-round picks and 3 swaps to give up. Not a lot of players, probably. I mean, you're not obviously giving up Jason Tatum or Brown or the big name that sticks out is Malcolm Brogdon. He's sort of upset recently over the way that the Celtics have handled his elbow injury, and he could be a piece that gets moved at some point soon. So why not in a trade for Damian Lillard? But
I mean, would the Celtics be able to pay Dame, Brown, and Tatum? Like, all 3 of them? Like, those are, like, Jaylen Brown recently agreed to a deal that's $303 million over 5 years. And Tatum's making a shit ton of money, and Dame is making an ungodly amount of money. Like, I feel like you have to jump off of Jaylen to get this deal to happen.
You probably do. Because especially with the latest tax aprons and stuff that were introduced, this might not even be legal if you keep both of those players, much less. I didn't do the math, so you might be forced to give up Brown, in which case you're probably not giving up all 4 of your firsts, and you can maybe cash in somewhere else for another player that can help you contend. But
right.
I don't know how much, like, without Jaylen Brown, I'm not sure this works out great for the Celtics.
Yeah, because especially after losing Marcus Smart too.
Yeah.
Then it's Dame and Tatum and
the Smart trade will look so stupid in retrospect if this happens.
yeah, like, you are just losing so much defense in your guards. Yeah, I don't really see the Boston one happening. Yeah.
But the Orlando one.
That's another team where, like, even more than the Raptors, where I'm like, you're set so well to just keep on track, do what you're doing.
Well, you're forgetting one thing, and that is there is no team worse in the league at player development.
That's a good point. Hey, they've kind of maybe fixed Fultz's shot a little, maybe.
Yay! What a use of a first-round pick. It wasn't their pick, but still.
Right. He's shooting better than he was in Philly, at least.
Yeah.
Oh, man. But yeah, it'll be we're a week away from media day and training camp starting. It'll be interesting to see if Dame gets moved before that. I highly doubt Harden's gonna be moved before that, and so I'm honestly really excited to see his media day in Philly if he's forced to show up and how he acts and responds.
Oh man!
After a month ago saying, "I will never play under an organization that is run by Daryl Morey,"
which is amazing. I mean, like we said, we don't anticipate he'll be traded by then. He's forced basically to show up or else forfeit all of his goals and probably never get signed again. And like, I don't know when this trade will happen because James Harden is a little baby who once traded from every team, so no team probably wants him. And Morey is a little baby who will never give him up for anything less than 3 firsts.
What I hope to see more than anything is just Harden be the most petty person in the world and show up on the 30th day.
I want to see him show up on the 30th day and like sit on the sideline of practice.
Yeah, wearing a fat suit.
Yeah. Man. Well, time now for what's always our final segment of the day, Sportsbook Showdown. A reminder, don't ever take our advice. This is a fun competition amongst friends, not in actual betting tips, and I promise you will lose money if you follow our action. As evidence, I was supposed to make a new spreadsheet this week to track our betting this season and sort of our progress, but I haven't yet because it would be a really lame graphic. We've placed 18 total bets combined. We have lost 14 of them, and the other 4 are pending.
Those will hit.
They have to. They have to.
Statistically, they got it.
I mean, there's no way they don't, right? We can't just lose all of our units. But yeah, it's not exactly graphics material. But anyways, Evan sent us his 3 losing bets, obviously, in his absence. So since he's not here to talk them over, we'll go ahead and get started with his. First bet of the week for him, Seahawks and Buccaneers moneyline parlay. I don't know how I feel about the Buccaneers one. I know you love that half, Micah. You probably like both of these halves.
Who are they playing against? I like the Seahawks one. I'll talk about the Seahawks one later. Yeah, let him bake. This is a great
Let him bake. Buccaneers over Saints. Why not? But Micah, what's your first bet of the week?
My first bet of the week are the Jaguars, Dolphins, Eagles, and Steelers all winning money line. Dolphins being the only one that is plus odds, and the one that's I'm most nervous about. I mean, the Jaguars could very well upset me, but you got to bet from the heart. I think the Dolphins are good enough to do it.
London loves Jaguars though. Like, they're gonna have such a huge home team advantage in London.
Yeah.
I want to see them take it home, but
yeah. So that bet is plus 640, and I put 2 units on that one. And moving on to Evan's second bet, which is a bet straight from my heart.
I haven't said my first bet yet.
I'm so sorry, Jonathan. What's your first bet?
For my first bet of the week, I've got. I tried to sort of theme all of my bets this week. They're all 3 parlays and all 3 somewhat related. So my first bet of the week is all over-unders. Broncos Bears over 46, Commanders Eagles under 44.5, Seahawks Giants under 46.5. Broncos Bears, it feels like the obvious over. The Broncos allowed 35 points in a game 2 weeks ago. They allowed 70 points in a game last week, and they are not the worst defense in this game. I don't know, 46 is almost an atrocious line. I don't know how it's not higher.
Yeah.
So I'm taking the over there easily. Commanders Eagles, slow pace of play for the Eagles, and both defenses are fairly solid, so I think the under is fairly good bet there. And then Seahawks Giants, similar pace of play, but I think I'm also just not fully impressed by either offense yet this season. We'll see if they can prove me wrong, but until they do, going the under there as well. This is a plus 642 for 2.5 units.
And now moving on to Evan's second bet. And a bet straight from my heart. He picked a Dolphins money line at plus 120, and he put 3 units on it. 3 of the 5.
Bet. Yeah. Like we alluded to earlier, I give the Bills the edge here. So the line wasn't enough to convince me, but this is definitely doable. And he would take a commanding lead over this segment if that hit, because neither of us are hitting.
My second bet of the week, also like Evan's, kind of a small one. At least it's not a parlay. I've got the Seahawks at minus 5.5. Seahawks were actually not favored this week against the Giants, which is very confusing to me because I looked at the injury report and no one looks injured. I think the Seahawks are the significantly better team, so I took an alternate line because I feel really good about the Seahawks winning this week. So at -5.5, that's plus 204 odds, and I put 2 units on that.
I mean, we all agreed on this. Like, if you check the power ranking segment again, we all had the Giants as no better than the 4th worst team in the league. And we all had the Seahawks as no worse than the 11th best team in the league. Like, the gap for us is huge, and the Giants are favored in this game. And there's plenty of room for us to be wrong here. But it's rare that all 3 of us are this wrong. So I like this bet. I probably would have gone a little bit safer and just taken the money line. But it's still just I think it's almost a sure thing and great odds. So yeah. For my second bet of the week, I went this time with a bet that I called, do you want to see me do it again? It's got 3 teams who all won impressive victories last week, and they're facing challenging opponents again this week, and I want to see it happen again. So I've got the Texans beating the Steelers, I've got the Patriots beating the Cowboys, and then most impressively, I have the Cardinals beating the San Francisco 49ers, which is probably insane. But Josh Dobbs has looked like as close to electric as Josh Dobbs can. And this offense is like shockingly churning. To the degree where like I almost imagine if they're able to pull off this victory, we might actually see Kyler Murray return this season. Because there's a lot of doubt, like, oh, maybe they should tank, maybe they should try to replace him in the draft. But if they are finding this much success, then fuck it, ride it out, see if you can make playoffs. Probably not, but this is a long shot bet that I'm going with. Plus 5,983. I'm going 1.5 units down.
Nice.
For Evan's final bet of the week, we have the Packers money line, Jordan Love over 1.5 passing touchdowns, and Aaron Jones anytime touchdown scorer. This is an interesting bet from a Packers fan. I do like the Aaron Jones touchdown scorer line of this because, like we discussed earlier, he's coming back from injury. I think he'll be super motivated. I think that it will be a very fun, electric game to watch for him, given that he actually plays, given that his touches aren't limited. I think that this could hit. I'm skeptical on Jordan Love passing touchdowns. I'm skeptical on Packers money line, but I'm just skeptical.
My final bet of the week is the Jets to be the lowest points scored on Sunday. This bet does exclude the London game of Atlanta and Jacksonville. Not entirely sure why, but it just does. I feel good about this bet. The Jets offense seems pretty abysmal, and they're going against a good Chiefs defense. I don't feel confident they're going to score that much, and I think the Chiefs will do a good job at locking them down. So that is plus 700 odds, and I put my last unit on it.
I probably wouldn't go so far as to say that the Chiefs have a good defense, but it might be good enough for the Jets.
Yeah.
Also, super convenient that Atlanta and Jacksonville are excluded from this bet.
Oh, yeah, that made it so much better.
My goodness. For my last bet of the week, I've got a parlay for all the division winners in the NFL. That's the Bills, the Ravens, the Jaguars, the Chiefs, Eagles, Lions, Saints, and nobody from the NFC West. I didn't want to include the 49ers because they are minus like 460 right now, and the Seahawks scare me just enough that like barely increasing this payout was not worth it for me. The Chiefs, however, are in a cupcake division, and I was not afraid at all by their minus 360 odds. So all in, that parlay comes out to plus 15,272, and I'm putting my final unit of the week on it. Well, it's getting real late here, guys. Having to record this twice is really hurting us. So thanks for tuning in. And Micah, why don't you go ahead and send us out with a hot take?
All right, this is the same hot take I had last time. It is the Eagles going undefeated except for a loss to the Dolphins.
who will go undefeated.
Who will go undefeated. All right, good night, guys.
Good night.